do that. Awesome. So I guess I will, sorry, just one more second. I have to put something up here before I get going. Pardon me. I had, Sorry, one second, Michelle.
Yeah, no problem.
Everybody watching, just sit tight while I figure
Hi, everyone.
figure my life out here.
I would do a dance, but not happening.
Not happening. Yeah, it's good. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. I had your bio loaded and then I somehow lost it and clicked off of it. So I was like, I'm about to lead into it. I'm like, where did it go?
You could have just thrown it over and said, Michelle, figure it out.
All good. But no, you deserve this introduction because it is, you've done an amazing job and accomplished so much in your career. And so you're worth having all of this wonderful introduction. So formally, though, Michelle Risi, we're happy to have her. She is the broker owner of LePage Connect Realty in Toronto and the Durham region. Sorry, Durham regions, and president and founder of the Real Estate Academy. And she's recently named, as I mentioned this, I pumped your tires a lot before this, one of the top 50 elite women in real estate by the RIP magazine, and official member of the Forbes Real Estate Council. So you've got a lot of stuff behind your name. That's fantastic.
I'm busy.
Yeah. Again, she's got experience that spans across 2 decades of market changes and industry evolutions, allowing her to share some really unique experiences. And again, I pumped this up with that many agents, that many locations. Just the depth of knowledge that she's going to bring is phenomenal. And so her passion is helping realtors just beyond her daily activities. She's a published author in Forbes and RAM magazine, and she shares her expertise through her social media platforms and podcasts. So hopefully I did okay there. But anyways, Michelle, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All righty.
Thank you.
So again, accomplishing so much. I always like going right from kind of the start. How did you, second generation, similar to me, but how did you get kind of into the business? How did this whole machine get rolling?
Well, it's a really long story. I'm going to try and condense it for you because it has been 20 years. Yeah. My very first part-time job was at a real estate office. I was 13 years old. I lied to get the job. If anyone is working for the government, just but I did. I lied on my resume to get the job. I remember because it was like my summer of grade 8 year, just going into high school. And so I just was looking for something more. I wanted to keep busy. I wanted to earn my own money. I've always been motivated to be independent. That is something that I really truly am, always have been. And so I kind of just kept real estate my entire life. Now, my mom was a salesperson at the time. And so I ended up getting the job at the brokerage that she was working with. And I made every mistake possible. I had zero training. They just threw me in, told me to answer phones. We had a little box that was our paging system, which was really high tech, typewriters with carbon copy paper. And so I have always just kept a job in real estate. And I did that whether I went to college for early childhood education and then went to university for a pre-med degree. I just always had my hand in the business, especially more so when my mother, Vivian, purchased her first company. It really then became a family affair. And so the rest was kind of just history from there. I just, I wasn't always in it full time. I toggled. I had one foot in, one foot out at one point. Yeah. Is this what I want to do, not do? But here I am.
Right. So what made you, so while you're toggling there over the years, what made you kind of, for it to toggle the full way and put the other foot into the deep end of real estate?
I think, if I can be really honest, I think the biggest challenge for me was growing up with such a strong female mom, who was a powerhouse when she was in sales and, just earned, rightfully earned her reputation in our industry, in our local market. And so there was a bit of intimidation. Mm-hmm. I think there was an expectation that I was going to be just like her. So there was I felt that pressure. And don't forget, I was really young. Imagine now if you guys are listening and you've got teenagers in your house, having to work with them, number one. That always makes for some interesting dinner conversation. Yeah. But I think it was more me finding the confidence to come into my own. And I think I was a late bloomer. because I honestly say I spent a good portion of my 20s trying to figure that part out.
Right.
And it really wasn't until I was finished having my babies, my two children, that when I decided to come back into the company, it was, okay, I've got to do something different. Because I worked pretty much every role in the company, starting from reception to deal admin, to bookkeeping, to managing. Yeah. And when I came back, I said, okay, I want to do something of my own, using my own strengths. And it really wasn't until that moment that I allowed myself to kind of just use my strengths and my creativity. And that's when the Real Estate Academy was born 14 years ago.
Right. So
then,
you're kind of you're going right where I wanted to take you. So yeah, so Real Estate Academy again. For those of you who don't know, I guess maybe shed a little light on what that is and how that's your baby and how it all started. And
yeah, I know, and it's funny because I think I unintentionally must have been really possessive about the Real Estate Academy because it's been often referred to as my baby. But it started 14 years ago after my second child was born. After about 4 months, I was like, I got to get back to work. There was something, I just couldn't stay home. I didn't have it in me to stay home. I just found that so trying on me. And so when I went back to work, I started back then, 14 years ago, at least in our market, brokerages really didn't have their hand in training. Everything was really pretty much taken up through licensing. And then you had your mentors and programs that people would follow, the Sweat Hogs, the Buffini's, right?
Yeah.
And so there really wasn't a need for the brokerages up until that point, to really get involved in training. But when I came in, all of a sudden we started noticing all these changes. And as I'm speaking to new realtors and they're asking me these questions, I'm like, but didn't you cover that in licensing? And they're like, no. And I'm like, what do you mean no? You didn't have to write up an offer? They're like, no. I was like, uh-oh. So It really was born out of necessity, in that, agents were coming out less prepared than what we were used to having them. And it started off small, like a group of 3 people.
Right.
And it just slowly, I basically kind of organized it with a visual in my mind of what a college university would do. So very program based. It's not, sequential. Take what you need when you need it. And that's kind of just how it formed. So it now serves as the official education institution for the family brokerage, your community realty, and then Royal LePage Connect Realty.
Right. So looking at that program over 14 years and with the company of your side, do you have a rough idea how many agents have gone through your training?
There's a few thousand, I think.
We're
combined 1,300 agents as we stand right now. So if you just look at, turnover, people leaving the business, some people, leaving to other brokerages, I'm certain we were just over 2,000 if I,
Right. So, and that's one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you, and why I think it's really important for agents to listen is, I can't say I've trained 2,000 agents, right? We try to do the same thing. We try to provide a lot of training and value, but to go, oh my gosh, so for 2,000 agents, I know every time that I train, I learn something more and I try to get better. And so I'm going 2,000, dear Lord. So what are some of the lessons, I guess, when you look at all of that training experience? You've seen some people come and go. Where do you find those keys to that longevity where I guess, let's say, take that agent who just started, who's coming in, and I know every broker I talk to has kind of got different rules on how long they give an agent before they know, but kind of when you take an agent brand new off the street, going, what are those traits, what are those skills that you look for that you go, that person's going to go, and what do they need to lean on for those character traits?
It's funny, and you're right. When you work with enough people, regardless of the industry, you spot certain things about people that are consistent, and you kind of use that to identify, oh, they're going to do really, really well. Yeah. And for the most part, I think, when you're in the business as long as we've been, you can pick that out. But I've been fooled many, many times, and for good. Yeah. Where I might be training somebody or working with an agent, and I think, I think this is going to be a really hard run for them. I'm just not sure if they have it in them. And something just happens and it clicks and they end up doing extremely well. So I think it's really hard to predict. And I don't like pigeonholing people or using a cookie cutter format with people, because I think that especially our industry, we have the ability to use whatever innate talents and strengths we have. And it's just about identifying what they are and then knowing where we're not maybe as strong and then filling those gaps in. So I do think, I strongly believe that the industry, if you are mentally prepared for it, if you're committed, if you're consistent, and you know enough about yourself and you're honest with yourself about what things you're good at and what things you're not, and then you just build structure around that, I honestly believe that you can do extremely well. It's not an industry that requires highly technical capabilities. You know, we're not in university for 4 years trying to learn the craft. It's people.
Oh, thank God for
That's
that.
Our craft. Yeah, it's just learning how to work with people. And I think if, you know, for most of us, those are strong skills that we can bring forward. But yeah, so I think, you know, I guess if I had to pick certain traits, it would probably be consistency would be one. Adaptability, the ability to sort of, you know, not be so fixed in the way we like to do things and know that we're not going to be perfect at everything, but what support can we bring in to make sure that we can navigate whatever's ahead. So I think those would kind of be the traits I would put out there.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm thinking about, you know, as you go with you know, take this new, kind of just following the journey of an agent kind of along. And, you know, I know it's impossible to predict. At the same time, when you're going through and they're going to that next kind of phase of their career, right? And they're making it. What do you see as being, you know, as you're coaching people through this, where they really make that leap from, okay, I'm making a living, into now I have a career and I'm doing this? What are some of those leaps that they have to make?
Structure, I think, is extremely important. You know, it's funny, and I think I repeat myself so often that I wonder if it's actually making sense anymore. But I think people are attracted to our industry because of that freedom and flexibility, right? You're not working for somebody. Nobody's mandating you to come into the office at a certain time. You can take your holidays when you want to take your holidays. So there really is this beautiful freedom and flexibility that entices us or attracts us to come into the industry. But at the same token, those are the things that work against us. And I find that when agents come in and they're doing, you know, learning their craft, and we're always learning. So I will just put that out there. 20 years later, I'm still consistently learning. That when they finally start doing that, and they start now implementing structure and treating it like a true business, that's when I see the shift in people. Because at the end of the day, you know, we're told, but not directly, that, you know, you should build up your database because your database is your business. Yes, but nobody talks about what that actually means in the big picture of everything, right? It's like, okay, I get it. Right, I know it's a lifeline, but where does that play in? And we see that, I see that with the amount of realtors that don't have any succession plans in place, and they just let that database go when they decide they're done. And so I think when you know, the more agents look at their business like a business, and they treat it with consistency, and they're clear on what they want to get out of it, because it's not the same for everybody. And I think that's the biggest surprise when I'm having conversations with my agents, especially brand new, when they're coming in. It's like, oh, you mean you don't want me? You're not mandating me to earn $500,000? And I'm like, no, I want what you want. So tell me what you want, and let's figure out how to get there. Because real estate is, again, it's got that freedom and flexibility. So we have to have an appreciation that it's very lifestyle driven. There are going to be people that come into the industry because it's a great way to earn money while they're raising their family, or a second job, or this is exactly what they want to do and they want to make this a full-time thing. So I think, you know, it's about understanding, what is the goal? What is your goal? How clear are you on that? What do you want to get from it? How can you serve your business as much as it serves you? And that's kind of like where I go with that.
Yeah, and I love your approach, because it's always you kind of, for lack of better words, so I apologize if I'm misusing it, but that kind of a holistic approach.
Yeah, it is.
It's not just, you know, oh, do this and hammer these many calls and, you know, a shotgun approach, anything like that. You've always, anytime we've talked, you really talk. Your training's about kind of the person and the strengths and the weaknesses of them, and kind of tailor-made, making their business for them. And so I always really appreciate that, because it's just such more, because there's not a one size fits all for this business. And so you really take a really good approach from that. It's something I'm trying to learn more from you. So one of the things, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're you're smarter than me, is
that's arguable.
sometimes, like I've heard, either not just agents, but since we're talking to agents, people can get in their own way. You've probably heard that. How do you, I know you deal with this, how do you help people get out of their own way? Because sometimes we're our worst enemy.
Always. We always are. And that's, it looks different for everybody. So it's been a while since I've done one-on-one coaching. That, early on when I started the academy, that was certainly one of my roles in working with agents. Now that I own and operate the brokerage, it's a little bit of a different. I still do coaching, but not in the same way. But I think even just in general, even if I look at my own life, or outside in general, I think the things that get in our way are the beliefs that we have. And I'm not going to get all woo-woo, I can, we'd be here for 3 hours, but I think, I think our mindset plays a big role, and our beliefs, and I guess I can only really speak to what works for me personally. And that's what I share. That's all I can share with people, because I don't know everything. I only know what works for me. And then we try it on, see if it works. And if it doesn't, we tweak it. But for me, it's really always been about questioning what I believe. So because I can convince myself, as you can convince yourself, that something is 100% true, or this is the way it should be. And so I've just kind of learned the trait of inquiry and questioning myself. And so I kind of do that with the agents when they come and they say, I can't do this, or this is not for me. I just sort of ask the why. Well, what makes you think that? Like, it's very easy. We are so good at finding proof for the things that we need to justify in our lives. And to see the flip side of that, those blind spots, we have to be able to train ourselves to find proof for that as well, because it's never just one way. So, there's a lot of things that I think stop us. I think our confidence is one of them, what we believe about ourselves, the stories we tell ourselves. And I use my kids as an example, because they really are our greatest teachers. I'm not strong in math. I'm the first one to admit that. Me and numbers don't go well together. Truly. But I look at my kids, and my daughter will say, oh, I'm just not good at math, or I'm just not good at this. And I look at her and I'm like, oh, honey, you just haven't been taught. Like, that's truly what it is. So let's figure out how to teach it to you in a way that you need to understand it. And I think that personal approach, or holistic approach, is really what I take with me everywhere I go. And so when I'm working with agents, it's really just helping them see, because I don't have the answers. I'm not going to know exactly what's getting in their way, but if I can help dig in a little bit, almost that archaeologist, right? Let's go on a fact-finding mission and see what's there. Usually that is the biggest sort of takeaway, because they get to see for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's good. Talking a bit, you mentioned, well, just habits is another thing that I think, really separates, the agents from, the ones that are struggling and the ones who have, again, consistent income. And I know I'm going a little off script for you guys, but
no, good. I kind of just briefly read through them, and
yeah, I know I get going and then I got some new thoughts.
It's good. So, conversation's better.
Yeah. So about habits, what are some of those key habits that you see? I mean, if you can kind of get into some of the minutiae as well, because I think habits of lead generation. Yes, we know that, habits of contacting your database. Yeah. What other kind of habits do you see, though, that are kind of that separates those, the habits that are going to sustain a career, and that an agent's going to go, and the habits they can implement to keep going and have longevity in their career, versus those who are in and out and they don't ever get really established?
So what I've witnessed and experienced myself is that when a realtor is emotionally connected to their business, meaning they're very clear on what they want to get out of it, the purpose it serves in their lives, how they can give back, what they enjoy doing. When they have that, and it's coupled with discipline and consistency, and I know those two words are used a lot in our industry, but they really do speak volumes to, you have a vision, everybody knows what they need to do, but not everybody does it. And I think, you can create a great habit we do it every day, right? I'm going to go on a good healthy eating binge for 15 days. And then after 15 days, it's like I spot the cookie and I want it.
Yeah.
And so
that's 14 days longer than I can go. So
yeah, that's a real exaggeration anyways for me. But, but I think it's, habits take you so far and they're important and we have to be disciplined and we have to have consistency and structure. But I think the other piece of the puzzle that a lot of people miss is the bigger picture. Why are you here? And I think Cliff Baird, I don't know if you've ever had a chance. Yes. He was at one of our leadership conferences way back.
Yes.
So he's a psychologist by nature.
Yeah, we actually flew him in a number of years ago. We did.
Okay. Yeah. So I love him. He calls himself the dinosaur. And I'm like, but perfect, because his theory and the way he approaches and looks at everything is really about understanding what your bigger picture is. And he uses the example of, okay, so let's just say you're driving around and you're doing for sale by owners and you're pull up to the house and you're about to go in and you stop yourself because you're afraid. What are they going to say? All those fears that come up. And right. The way he positions it is, but if you automatically now look at a photo of your family and you remind yourself why you're doing this, all of a sudden that overrides all the little negative self-talk and things that we use to talk ourselves out of things. And so I think the bigger picture piece, a lot of people miss. And that's, it's the only way I really know how to operate. So I don't want to seem biased, right? That this is the only way to do it. It's just the only way I know how to operate, that when I can, for myself and for realtors, help them see what the bigger picture is, then you're more inclined to stay motivated to it than it just being, here's a simple task, I have to have this habit and let me stick with it. Because it's very tunnel vision that way. And I think you just have to kind of look at everything.
Yeah. No, that's great. You mentioned one of the words, I wrote it down on my notes quickly. You said emotionally connected to your business. I've never heard that before. And can you maybe, I know you did sort of elaborate to it, but I'm wondering if you could drill home a little bit more on that and what that exactly means. And
yeah. Yeah, I think, I think that ties into why I call myself a lifestyle entrepreneur expert and why I look at realtors as lifestyle entrepreneurs. And it's not a term that we hear very often in our industry. We know lifestyle entrepreneurs from mass media of people who live a laptop lifestyle, they run a business online, they can do it from anywhere in the world. And that's true. But if you really look at lifestyle entrepreneurship, it's where you are creating a business to support a life you love, not the other way around. And we've all been conditioned to just be, focus on the business as opposed to what it's actually going to do for us. Why are we doing this? So when I say emotionally connected, I mean, what is it? What is your business doing for you? Why did you get into this? Yes, we all want to make money, but for what?
Right.
For what? What is it going to do? Is it going to help you send your kids to a better school? Is it to help you travel more? What are those sort of pieces that come in that are really going to keep you connected and motivate you?
Yeah, I like that. That's good. And you mentioned there, the lifestyle entrepreneur. And so kind of segueing into that, you started the Lifestyle Entrepreneur podcast. And so what was that like going from even just the concept of starting a podcast? How did you go, okay, it's a bit of a leap and maybe it was uncomfortable at start, I'm assuming. But so tell me about that journey going, hey, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take the leap. I'm going to start this podcast, put myself out there. Because I know myself or I know there's other agents, they will, put themselves out there, also faces, it allows them to be criticized, and so how did you get over that fear? And tell me a bit about that.
I feel like I've been blessed with a bit of ignorance that I kind of miss some cues. So I don't really get drawn into, I don't allow myself to get into the what ifs. My husband reminds me all the time, Michelle, the more you put yourself out there, the more you're opening yourself up for criticism. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't focus on that because when I know that I'm supposed to be doing something, I have to do it. And that's kind of what happened with the whole lifestyle entrepreneur approach and the podcast. It was this little thought that kept on brewing and it just kept on building. And from there, I was like, oh, I could do this and I could do this. And oh, wow, imagine if we could coach realtors like this and we could make them see that it's not just about selling houses. There's more to this. There's a bigger purpose to it. And so I guess I got myself excited enough that I was able to tune everything else out.
Yeah.
And I know I can appear, especially to my family, I can appear very like as if I just woke up one day and decided to do it.
Yeah.
And it's never like that, and everybody listening probably knows that, there's always an underlying, you might not speak it or breathe it, but it's there.
Mhm.
It's percolating itself. And so I just was looking at, okay, how am I going to get my message out there? How am I really going to have the biggest impact? Okay, I have the impact with my realtors because I have the connection with them, but what about everybody else? How can I best do that? And to be honest, I lean towards podcasts simply because I just don't like video. And that is the honest to God truth. It was, well, if I do video, I got to make sure my hair is done and my makeup is done. And I just don't spend, a huge amount of my energy focused on that. I mean, I like to look good, but I just don't spend a lot of my energy on that. And so I
Right.
really just chose podcasts for accessibility. I
Mhm.
could record a podcast in my pajamas. I could record it in the evenings or on the weekends. I didn't have the restriction that I felt like I had with video,
Right.
which I'm not knocking video. If anyone's listening, it's powerful. I just felt for me to be able to take that leap, I had to remove as many barriers that were going to stop me, so that I didn't have any excuses. And so I just chose the easiest route or path, and that for me was podcasts. And I just taught myself how to do it. There's no shortage of
Yeah.
how-to
You could,
videos.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned there just getting your message out. How do you see? I mean, maybe not every realtor wants to start a podcast or should start a podcast.
Right.
About what you mentioned, getting your message out, taking those leaps to get that message out. How do you see that translating into the everyday realtor, who we all do have message? We do have to get content, and we have to get things out there. How do you apply that
Yeah.
to them?
I think the approach that I would take is really looking at it from a niche market perspective. So who are you trying to reach, number one? And that's always my first question when I'm with realtors, whether it's about their listing and they're trying to come up with the proper verbiage to use for MLS or their social media. It really comes down to who are you speaking to? Can we define that? Can you create almost a client avatar, a profile of them? Because when you have that and you have all of those bits and pieces and you know them as much as you can know them in figurative speaking, then you know what content is going to be important to them. And I think the biggest trap that we fall into is us. Sorry, was that me that made that beeping noise?
I didn't hear that.
Okay, sorry. I forgot to turn off my calendar. I think the biggest, where was I even going with that? See how just squirrel.
Yeah, I got
Okay, the messaging, right.
yeah, the
Okay.
messaging and getting it out there. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. It's been a long day. When you know what people want and need, it's very easy to craft then your messaging and know how to position it. When you don't, we end up relying on what's comfortable for us. And when we do that, and here's what I typically see anyways with social media, is realtors speak to other realtors. So their messaging, the posts is all with great intent, but it's written in a way that it appeals to realtors, not the actual consumer who needs to hear it. And so that's, when I work on messaging, whether it's through social media or podcasts, I mean, there's so many different mediums that we can use to get our message out. It's really about understanding who you're speaking to, creating a profile of that person, understanding what their needs are, what are their frustrations, how can you help, and then really zeroing in bite-sized information, because people can't take in too much all at once. We're bombarded, right? Especially now that everyone's home and they're
Oh yeah, we talked about that before we started. Just getting
yeah.
fired
Well,
up.
listen, I mean, and it's great because anybody who has a social media strategy going is seeing huge engagement right now because everybody's on their phones and they have the time to do that. But to be effective, it really has to speak specifically to who you're trying to capture.
Yeah. So I'm curious to really understand then that target market, that audience. Did you do any research on this, or kind of do you just sort of put yourself in their shoes, or did you actually conduct any formal research or surveys or anything like that to really find out what people are, how it makes them tick?
Yeah, so I think I used a lot of what I knew from 20 years experience of working with realtors,
Yeah.
and I coupled that with who's going to relate to me most. And I had those insights to know that through past social media strategies of who were my followers, who are people commenting, who really resonates with what I have to share. And so I built it like that. But for realtors, I think the best approach is to do your profile. Who would you like to work with? Who do you think is going to best benefit from working with you? Name them. Like when I say profile, I mean literally
Yeah.
give the
Give
person
them
a
name.
name.
It's
Yep.
Jane and yeah.
Yep. And then do interviews. If you've been in the business and you've done transactions before, you will already have access to people that fit that profile. And
Right.
so calling them up and asking them certain questions about what they're looking for. What are the biggest frustrations? What was the hardest part about, buying or selling real estate? What are your dreams 5 years from now? Just really getting that intel from actually asking the questions. So I think that's the research is important. We can all guess, but then it's just all hypothetical. I'd rather know, as best to the best that I can. And even if you didn't have a group of people, so I do get, sometimes we have realtors that join us. They're new immigrants. They don't have a database of people. They really are starting off from scratch. And so I say, okay, then join Facebook groups of where you think your ideal client is actually going. If it's, if your target client is a female and they have children, go to a mom's group and just listen. There's a lot of great listening that can happen on social media. It's great for putting information out, but it's really great for extracting information as well.
Yeah, and that's great information because there's a lot of realtors who try to be everything to everyone, right? And especially with marketing. Now, again, I was an agent, especially in Winnipeg. It's not that big of a city, so we're going to go in any neighborhood. We're going to list whatever we can. We're going to sell whatever. It doesn't mean you don't sell those kind of places or properties. But as far as if you're going to put, money behind a marketing program or a campaign of some kind, you can't do this generic blast to the entire city of anybody looking to buy or sell. And so that's really, that's why we see department stores struggling right now. And it's, it's the niche stores that are actually doing okay in retail. And so it seems like you took that approach of, hey, I'm going to be me and I'm going to, here's who resonates with me and I'm going to put that out for them. And if you don't like it, you don't like it, but you're going to really have your niche.
Yeah. And it is easier said than done because there's a lot of fear that, especially when it's, don't forget, when I was doing this, it wasn't really affecting my core business. It was, how can I grow my audience bigger so I can have a bigger impact? But as a realtor where your business is dependent on it, it's very scary to have to make that decision to say, oh my gosh, you mean all my messaging is going to be targeted to this particular person? Well, what about everybody else? And I don't want to lose that. And so there is a lot of legitimate fear around that. And I think I just always go back to the principles of marketing. And they say, when you aim to speak to everyone, you speak to no one. And especially now when we are bombarded with information in online marketing, I mean, everywhere we look, we're being hit with information. And so the only way you're going to cut through that noise is to be able to zero in on your message so it really hits somebody here. Like it matters to them specifically. And it doesn't mean you're not going to get the rest of the business. That's the misconception about it. But it is a legitimate fear, and it is very hard to just push back that. But I've tried both. I can just share from my personal experience. When I took a very general approach, I got okay engagement. When I really got specific with my messaging and every time I crafted a social media post, I did it with somebody in mind, the engagement was way better.
Yeah.
So I kind of go with that based on what market stats are showing. And I kind of just trust in that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And you got the results to prove it.
So far.
So looking at, I guess we kind of have to talk about COVID and what's going on right now, and especially, and really why I reached out to you, pretty dang quickly. One of the first people that came to mind was because realtors are struggling with so many other things than just business right now. And again, I couldn't think of a better person to look at, again, the holistic approach than you. So what has your approach been? How are you coaching your realtors right now and your staff during this time where everybody's kind of got bombarded with stress and pressures and this environment that we're in right now?
Yeah, I think a lot of my realtors have been really appreciative of the fact that I'm taking a holistic approach. So when we check in for our office Zoom meetings, it's not just business and stats. It's how are you doing? You know, what are some of the things that you're facing? And I you know, a lot of them have been coming forward, even just in friends outside of the industry as well. One of the biggest challenges we're facing is that we are, I don't know how it is, you know, where you guys are, but we're not, you know, we're being mandated to stay home. You know, we're kind of in a lockdown. And so we are, suddenly our families have become our coworkers. We're not really sure how to deal with that. And so there's a lot of, our kitchens are becoming mixed use spaces. And, you know, we don't really have boundaries set up because we just weren't prepared for this. So I think, you know, when I tackle that part first, I think there's a bit of reassurance that, okay, we're all going through this together and let's just start from square one. And I think that's the approach I really have been taking is we are in a pause right now. And never in our lives have we ever had the opportunity to pause and look at everything in our life and our business. What was working, what wasn't. We have an opportunity to almost wipe that slate clean and start fresh because everybody's going to be in that same position. And so I kind of just go with square one. Okay, guys, your homes are your new office. What do you got to do? How can you create boundaries and, you know, respect everyone else's space, especially if you have children who are doing online schooling, right? Everybody's sharing the internet. Everybody's, you know, needs a piece of you. And so how can you reestablish a new routine and new structure as if this was your workplace? And that's just sort of the approach I've been taking. And so looking at it from a holistic perspective, I think we have to. We don't live in silos, and I don't think we can deal with COVID in silos. We can't just look at the business as its own compartment because everything gets affected. If you're having, you know, challenges at home, that's going to leak its way into your business and vice versa. So there's a big blending happening, and I think you have to look at it from all angles. Yeah,
that's good. I forgot to mention, if anybody has any other questions, please enter them into the Q&A box down there. As you mentioned with COVID and kind of what you're dealing with right now, how are you helping, and what is your advice to agents dealing with that kind of stress and anxiety that this time is bringing right now?
Yeah, it's not an easy time, especially if you are immune compromised or living with people that are immune compromised. There's a whole level of fear that we are not used to dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So I think the best advice is really just sort of ground yourself, get back to a routine. I know when I don't have routine, I'm thrown off. And so the best thing we can do with ourselves is to really start reestablishing a brand new routine with new structures. It's not going to look the same as it did before, but we still have our businesses. That does not go away. Even if you cannot practice right now or choose not to practice right now, your business is still there and running. And so what does lead generation look like now that we're in COVID? Well, it's not door knocking or cold calling, like that's kind of taboo right now. But what can you do to reach out to the people in your database? What things can you do to stay top of mind and help people? Because it's not just about real estate anymore. We are all in this pandemic together. So what can you do to make someone's life easier? That's lead generation. It doesn't look the same way because we're in a different time, but it's still lead generation. So I think really reestablishing routine and schedules again, and looking at what buckets do we have to work with in our business. We have our lead generation, we have administration, we have our education and training. And I think the amount of time that we have available to us right now is probably best served in lead generation and education and training. And I think now's the time to start learning what skills you didn't have before or skills that you anticipate that you're going to need once all of this lifts, because I can guarantee our industry and business is not going to run the same post-COVID as it did pre-COVID. I think a lot of the things that we're seeing right now that are very creative adaptations to how we used to do business are probably going to stick around. I think virtual open houses are going to make its way now as a mainstream. Virtual showings and more high-tech virtual tours are going to now start emerging because it's already happening. So it's not going to go anywhere. And I think people are getting quite comfortable doing business from their home, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and this whole like not wearing pants thing is right? So,
yes.
Yeah, I'm at the office. I got them on for the record.
Okay, good.
So actually, and again, sorry to put you on the spot for something specific here, but you mentioned there just lead generation, and again with the 1,300 agents that you have. What are some? I'm sure you've had some kind of anecdotal stories come out of some things that people are doing right now that are really maybe effective through lead generation. So maybe can you share anything? Again, put you on the spot. Apologize.
Yeah,
But
no, that's okay. I'm seeing a lot of creative things actually come out, and what I'm noticing is that the creative ideas are really being born from people who are tackling this from a human level perspective. Like, I'm genuinely concerned, what can I do? And so I have realtors that are doing, I don't know if you guys have it there, the front porch project, where they're hiring. So realtors are hiring
yeah, I've seen some.
photographers.
Yeah, I have seen some go around. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
so
I
they're
haven't seen a
hiring.
realtor do it, but
Okay, so realtors are hiring photographers, the photographers that they would normally use, that would still want to maintain that relationship. If they were working with a photographer for homes, now they're saying, okay, listen, can we work out something? What's your fee? I'd like to now have you go around and take photos of all of my clients on their front porch.
right.
And we can sell those photos to them for whatever, $5, $10. And we now can take that money and support our shelters or our local hospitals. And so they're really looking at how they can stay in touch with their clients by serving the community and just making sure that everything is still working, that momentum is still there. And so I've seen that's been really successful. Virtual, they're doing virtual almost meetups with clients and databases. So if we can't have a client appreciation party, can we do that, using Zoom? Recipe exchanges, I'm going to the store today. What can I pick up for you? So really, yeah.
Sorry, just as you said
Yeah.
that. So my wife this morning, she went to Costco. My in-laws were over, so they were able to watch the kids because we have a little COVID bubble, we call it, with them, that we all went through it together. Nonetheless, so she was able to go to Costco today, and she texted her friend and just said, "Hey, I'm going to Costco. Is there anything else can I pick you up anything?" And her friend responded, "This is literally the best text I've gotten in a month."
It doesn't have to be big.
It was that true, right? That one's been cooped up at home. So
yeah, you just don't know what people are facing right now. And the simplest gestures are having the biggest impact. It doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to, have a hot air balloon go by someone's house. And, it's not about that. I think now more than ever, people are really appreciative of the human connection piece and it being real and genuine. And I think even just picking up the phone, if we're looking at lead generation, typically now we're looking at our database, our sphere of influence. And so what things can you do? Can you make a point of calling 5 people a day and just checking in and seeing how they're doing? If you're doing a grocery run, if you're able to do that, finding out who's maybe can't drive or is elderly and shouldn't be leaving the house or immune compromised, and reaching out to them. And really, I think now's the time to really be dissecting our databases, going with the whole Buffini thing of, making sure you categorize them, your A, B's, and C's. Now's the time to really categorize them based on need and how you can serve them. And if they've got young kids, they're probably pulling their hair out and bored, like trying to keep them entertained. And so can you do something fun? I've seen realtors show up in bunny costumes outside of the client's home on Easter, and like 5 minutes just to give a little laugh or a little rush for the kids to get excited about. So it doesn't have to be big, but I think, we still have to be maintaining our businesses, the momentum. We have to have a business to come back to when all of this is said and done. And the only way we're going to do that is if we keep the momentum going. So lead generation is important. It just looks differently.
Yeah, absolutely. One of, I guess, kind of leading towards the wrapping up here a little bit, what does the future hold for you and your family, your brokerage? You've accomplished so much. Where do you see, the next, call it 5 years, 10 years? Where do you want to take this thing? Because you're so emotionally connected to your business. Where are you taking this ship? Yeah.
I think we're all still on track with growth. That's something that we've built. We've spent many years building a very solid foundation. And it's helped that it's a family business and we've got more than one person doing that. And you can appreciate, the dynamics of family businesses for sure. But, we all have our strengths and we've all contributed to building this strong foundation so that we can grow. So I think growth is on the horizon. What that looks like, I don't know. I think we're really At least I am anyways. I don't want to speak for Vivian and Justin, but I kind of go with the approach of being adaptable. So being ready for whatever that's going to look like. I don't have a set vision in mind because I don't have a crystal ball to know what that's going to be like. But if there was opportunities for further growth through acquisition, could we accommodate that? If there was an opportunity to do something more in the industry, like in terms of different roles, are we prepared to do that? And so I kind of just always look at it from that adaptability perspective of whatever that growth could look like, let's explore it and see if we can make it happen. But definitely we're in this for the long run.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's great advice for anybody at any stage of their business or career of going, hey, you position yourself so that you are ready to seize an opportunity when it presents itself. You don't want to be in that position of, I didn't really have much of a choice, but back in 2008, I remember like when the first financial or that financial crisis happened.
Yeah.
I remember like, I know I should buy something, but at that time, like I have no money. So I wish I had it to do that, to take advantage. So I think it's important to, as you mentioned, always be prepared to take advantage of that opportunity, and whatever it looks like, it may not be exactly what you think or what you have planned, but to be prepared to adapt to the opportunity. That's really good advice.
And the crisis, I think if we learned anything from COVID, it's that we have to be prepared for disruption. I know we've all talked about disruptors in our industry. This is it. It is not about the Zillows. It is not about anything. This was truly the disruptor. And so we have to be prepared that in 2 years from now, that disruption might not be COVID, it might be something else. And are we prepared for that? What does the prepared even look like? And that is just, I think, simply a matter of, again, looking at your business like it truly is a business. It's not a getting up every day and saying, what am I going to do? And maybe I'll do this. It's looking at it from a whole strategy perspective. We've all been caught off guard when we have all loved to have extra cash to purchase something, when prices were low. But that might not be possible, but there are other opportunities that you could probably capture and ways to be prepared if another crisis comes.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the questions here that came in was about the work-life balance and being, again, busy, 1,300 agents, et cetera, and a mom, especially it sounds like over those last, those busy 14 years after Real Estate Academy, et cetera, that's the prime peak of raising those kids. How did you do it all? How did you balance and maintain all of this?
I struggled like everybody does. I don't think, when you're raising a young family and you're at a peak of your life where you're ambitious and you want to do things, and there's always a give and take. It took me a while, but I figured out that there is no such thing as balance. And I truly mean that, just from my perspective. I think, when we think about balance, one thing equals another thing. And I just don't know where that has ever been equal for me. Family will always outweigh everything else. Health and safety will always outweigh everything else. So there's always a give and take between your business and, your family, personal life. And so I started looking at it as, again, one big picture. And I use the word harmony, work-life harmony instead of work-life balance. So that you understand it's not about this, bucket and this bucket, and we're keeping everything separate. It's no, actually, how I parent is probably going to trickle its way into my business and my relationships, and everything kind of has its own, ebb and flow. It all works together. And so I stopped putting a lot of pressure on myself for everything to be perfect. Because I'm not a perfectionist, but I like accuracy. I like to understand what I'm doing. I don't make quick decisions without really thinking it through and knowing what I know. And so I just started approaching it that way, that it's, I'm not going to be a perfect mom, and sometimes I'm going to lose it and, yell and, sometimes we're going to have arguments, and same thing with work. Sometimes I'm going to have to not be able to be there for my kids because something is really, really pressing. And we've just got to learn to be okay with that, because we can't be everything to everyone. And if you're looking to grow in all areas, it's got to be a give and take.
Yeah, it's good. Another question came in kind of on the same vein, but about, you mentioned boundaries. What specific boundaries have you put in place in your home, to make this all work? I'm kind of paraphrasing the question, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. We each have our own rooms. I've taken over the home office. So I get to have that, but my husband works from the bedroom. My kids work from their rooms. And we're respectful. If the door is closed, we're not just barging in. My kids, we've spoken openly about what it looks like now to work from home. And my kids were actually used to that. So when I acquired LePage Connect Realty, it was in a region that I didn't live in. I'm not local to Durham region. And so it's a longer commute. It's not as easily accessible. So I moved my main office to my home. So they were already kind of accustomed to, if I'm in the office and you see the headphones on, no, you can't barge in unless the house is burning down or something's, wrong.
Right.
But so it's when I say boundaries, it literally is that physical boundary and setting rules. No different than if you were to go to a workplace. If we were all to quit our jobs now and go work for a corporation, we would have to understand the social rules of that new environment. Who not to piss off before 9 a.m., but that's what it's about. It's now we've got our coworkers, our new coworkers, we've got to live with the habits that we might not have to have lived with for 24/7. Am I being diplomatic about this?
Yeah, no, you're doing a great job of tiptoeing around that broken glass. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I mean by boundaries.
Yeah, it's good. One other question here. If anybody else, is the last question I have coming in from the group. So it's kind of going back to the beginning of our conversation about some of the training. What's the number one reason agents fail?
Ooh. I'm going to say lack of consistency. And I'm going to say that for a reason. So I talked about, having a clear vision, knowing what you want. I can share with you, I've known what I wanted in life. And if I didn't go after it and, have the discipline to stick with it, I didn't achieve it. So it's good to have the vision, but that's not going to get you where you want. So I think the consistency has really, from what I've seen has, I guess, I don't know if consistency or discipline is the right word to use, but I think it's.
So if you don't mind, I want to take that scab a little bit and drill into it. So consistency with what? I mean, I kind of have some ideas on what I think you will mean, but consistency, is this with marketing and messaging, or making your calls, do the daily grind? Like, kind of, can you drill down a bit more into that minutia of the consistency?
Yeah, for sure. So I think if we look at our business, everything is important. Marketing is important. Everything's important. But when you really, really look at it, what are the actions that make you money? And that's when I work with realtors, I say, okay, let's take all of the activities, like literally, let's write it down. What's everything that you do? Open houses and offers and admin work and research. And we lay it all out. And I say, okay, now next to each one, tell me which one directly makes you money, is revenue generating, and which one just supports all of that. And so when you start going through that exercise and you start realizing, oh, yeah, that makes me money. That one, it supports it, but I'm not really getting a direct income benefit, from it. Right. And so when we look at those activities that make us money, are we doing those in the same capacity that we need to? And typically that lends itself to lead generation. And I say that because it's the activity that most people don't do enough of. Right. Because they're afraid, or they haven't found an activity that really works for them. I don't like getting on the phone, or I'm afraid of the objections I'm going to get. There's a lot around that, but that's 70% of our business.
Right.
That would be like Starbucks locking its door.
Yeah.
Well, if they
which they do have right now.
Right, they do, yes. But if the customers can't come in, how are you going to make money? If you don't have anybody there making the coffee and stocking the cups, how are you going to make money? So it's the same sort of perspective of what things do you do in your business that actually support you making money? Because I get marketing is fun. Social media is fun. It's nice to design a website. It's really cool to be able to, plan an event or client appreciation. And that's all supporting, but that's not driving the engine to really keep your business going to earn you revenue. So when I say consistency and discipline, it's doing those actions. What things do you need to do to keep your business going?
Yeah, it's good. Follow-up question. This one's from me. You mentioned in that, in your answer there about that some people, they don't like making the calls, or they're not comfortable with it. I find sometimes that I think we can be open and honest on this thing. there are realtors who are sometimes they're wide, they're high I personalities, they're extroverts, they love talking, they love being on the phone, they love people, blah, and they're excited all the time. And then there's those agents who they're more introverted, they're more pensive, they're not that boisterous personality, you know, who's going to go in and make 100 friends in a networking event kind of thing. So what strategies do you give, like, with those people who maybe are not naturally wired to be the spotlighter, that spotlight agent? What activities do you help them for lead generation where they should be concentrating?
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned I personality. So I'm certified in DISC analysis. So I do DISC assessments with my realtors, and I do it from the perspective of coaching. So I can take that and understand what things are they going to be comfortable with and what things are they going to not want to do, just naturally based on their personality. I'm an introvert. I relate very much so to introvert realtors. I am not the one to go to a networking event and talk, and I will once I get to know you. But have you ever seen me walk into an event and be like, hey, my God? Because, you know, I don't. I kind of like, I'm the one on my phone until I get my surroundings and I know who I'm around. And so I relate to that. And that's why when we started this conversation and I said, it's not a one size fits all. And I think if you understand what your strengths and your limitations are going into this, then it's about learning how to use those to the best of your ability. So if you are not the social networker and you don't have that a high I personality that you can go in and that, you know, socializing is just fun for you. If you don't have that, then what are you comfortable doing? Because we can't use it as an excuse not to do our work. Right? Yeah. You still have to.
If you're not going to do that, then what are you going to do?
Then what are you going to do? I have one of my realtors is a lawyer. He's actually got a legal background, very factual, not highly, extroverted, great at rapport. You know, he can build one-on-one relationships. He's great, can have a great conversation, but he's not going to be the guy that's going to go networking. So I looked at him and we did his DISC personality and I said, okay, you have a love of information. Like just naturally, he's a sponge. He will come to you and tell you exactly what these relief plans are going on right now and, you know, best way to do it. And, oh, I heard this. And so he's a fountain of information. And I say, that's your value right there, because your clients probably will not have that. So how can you take that and now translate it? What would that look like? What would be no different than me saying, I don't want to do video. I like podcasting because it's most accessible for me. So if you don't like networking, what things do you like to do? What's going to be most comfortable for you? Because you can't get out of it. So now let's pick something. So for him, it was, okay, can you go on LinkedIn and can you start networking with lawyers? Right. And, you know, create a group to support lawyers.
Right. That one was me.
It's the kids.
Do not disturb. How do I do this?
No. That's okay. You can just answer. It's good entertainment.
Oh, like, shoot, I forgot to put it on.
We're in a reality show.
There it is.
24/7.
I don't know how to work my own bloody phone. Okay.
It's all good. This is what reality TV is all about. So it's looking at then what can you do? So for him, he was not comfortable networking. He was not comfortable door knocking, but he was comfortable working through alliances and networking online. And so we just took those same principles and translated it online. And he's created in LinkedIn groups for lawyers to join, and he helps to give them real estate information. And so he's got that exchange, right? So he's using his talents and his strengths and things that come naturally for him. And he's finding workarounds for the areas that he's not strong in, which is the networking, social, outward social part.
Yeah, gotcha. No, it's good stuff. Yeah. I just want to give the last kind of second here if anybody has any final questions. Yeah. Seeing none at the moment. I can't thank you enough, Michelle. Really enjoyed the chat. I really enjoyed, again, just I hope everybody appreciated just the more all-around approach, the holistic approach that Michelle brings. And again, such a depth of knowledge, and always a delight to talk to you. Well, actually, I have one more question. If this coronavirus and all this kind of stuff ends and we can fly again, are you coming to Winnipeg for the conference?
Yes. Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Yes.
I hope we can.
Fingers are crossed there. Jeez.
I know, but no, absolutely. I would love to. And I would love to meet everybody at your office as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Best of luck out there. Stay safe, stay healthy, And once again, thank you.
Thank you. Take care, guys. You will get through this, by the way. You've got a great leader. Yeah. No, but before I go then, I don't know if anyone's hung up yet, but I'd like to give you a plug because it's not easy right now, managing a ship, you know, and navigating these uncharted waters. And the fact that you are doing these kinds of things with your realtors and finding speakers and bringing them the tools and resources, that truly is what it's about. And I think we couldn't be in a better organization with Royal LePage and the amount of support. I don't know if any of you guys are reading those pandemic relief newsletters that they send out. There honestly is no need to go anywhere else. They're sending us everything that they need. And I think, you know, your leadership combined with Royal LePage's leadership and the fact that Royal LePagers across the board are so open to collaborating and sharing with one another right now. It's like the conversations I'm watching online of here, I'll send you my buyer package. Oh, here, I've tried this. People are just so open to sharing right now. And I think if we're going to get through this, we're going to get through it together. That's the only way to do it. And you're doing amazing by giving these forums to the agents to be able to learn and extract what works for them and just to support them however they need.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And I forgot to give you, of course, your plug. Check out Michelle's podcast, Lifestyle. I'm sure you can find it anywhere where podcasts are. Lifestyle Entrepreneur Podcast. And as you meant, you know what? As I'm sitting here, really, I'm new at these interviews, and I broke the cardinal rule. I've been looking at the screen. I've been looking at you, but not at the camera. I realize that you can't see. I'm like, oh man.
I don't even know where I'm looking. I see the green dot, but I'm just wherever.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be looking at the dot. I'm looking at you the whole time, like the whole video. Anyways,
you know, this is
I'm working
all
on
new.
it.
It's all new for all of us. I think we got to be really gentle with ourselves. It's okay. Just the cardinal rule is don't take your device to the bathroom. That's it. That's the cardinal rule. So it doesn't matter where you look.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So again, once again, Michelle, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. All the best. Add a Justin, your mom for me.
Thank you. I will. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.